JB here. Hope everyone's doing outstanding Tuesday, June 17th, 3:15. It's Friday afternoon. Talk really quick about the market. Some names I'm looking at go from there. S&P down about 0.8%. Uh, Not able to hold the ground from yesterday's rally, and a lot of it is continued geopolitical concerns, right? And I'll be the first to say I continue to think that the U.S. wasn't going to get involved with this Iran-Israel conflict, or at least just provide defensive um, support if on the missiles in Israel and things like that. But now you see it kind of like switching, and who knows what's been whispered in Trump's ear. I You have to think it's got to be with this last nuclear facility that's in the mountains, right? And they've been talking about this one for the last couple of days. You need the bunker busters, or you need those repeated hits, or you need some kind of mission. Who knows what that all looks like? But I think that's probably the crux of the whole situation. So, uh, does it mean that the U.S. I mean, if they're giving the bombs, they still need to get the planes to drop them. So I don't know if they have both. Again, I'm no military what expert or what have you, but it's kind of disappointing, right? Because you don't want. To me, it's like It's not like there was an attack on the U.S. and there wasn't an attack really on Israel, right? Uh, so it's more now you're getting involved in something where I wouldn't say instigated by Israel, but I mean it wasn't anything that instigated this week outside of the fact that they think that Iran was close to nuclear weapons, right? So we'll see how this all plays out. It just all the different headwinds over the last couple months. It's just another one, right? And people who are, especially if you're skewed bearish on the market, you would say, wow, this is another chance, another opportunity, load the puts. Maybe it is, right? I mean, especially if there's collateral damage, other folks get pulled in. That would be worst case scenario, right? And the markets would not react well to that. But take a look at a SPY here. It's still holding at 597. Market's still up. I mean, S&P is still up tenth of percent for the week, right? So you could, if you didn't know geopolitical concerns were rattling the markets, you would say, oh, this is just consolidation after yesterday's rally, and the fact the market has come up so far so fast, and we're only 1.5, 2% away from all-time highs. So you wrap that all together, so you can make the case that okay, the market's just kind of like shaking it off. So the other concern is, of course, oil price, and oil's up at $75. I'm still in I still think in the back of my head, I'm like, this for it to go to $130 would be insane, right? I mean, there's so many things that are different now than they were in the past, but obviously there's a lot of implications. I mean, not only transportation, but a lot of things are made with oil. Um, just all the different things that are utilized because of oil, and just an uptick a little bit in the price of that. Then you start worrying about inflation, and then is this going to handcuff the Fed? Are they going to not cut rates at all? So I look at those as like least case scenarios here, and I think if things did get crazy, Powell's going to cut rates. I think that's always kind of like the backdrop. So we'll see what happens here. I mean, had the German chancellor saying that there's no way that Israel can finish the job in regards to kind of getting resetting Iran's nuclear capabilities, or at least the ability for them to produce without some help. So we'll see what happens here. So, I mean, you take a look at the chart on the slide. Actually, I mean, it doesn't look so bad here. Even today's candle, still a somewhat decent trading range here today, right? So 602 down to 598, 597. I mean, we did drop under 597 for a flash. So, I mean, all things considered, I mean, I'm a glass half full kind of person, at least for now. So until things change, I'll continue to look for opportunities to play for upside 597 to 606. That's kind of like the range this week. Hopefully we can hold that. Um, and I did some lottos here today, and I put it in the trade sections. Like I want to grab more lottos here today, because if you look, I mean, I think there's opportunities, but you got to, number one, think that today's kind of like a Wednesday afternoon because the markets are closed on Thursday. We have the Fed meeting tomorrow, and then who knows what headlines are going to come out overnight, right? I mean, you don't know. There's nothing without 100% certainty that you could say that there could be some that moves the market. So I think, yeah, I think it's just best to kind of like wait and see. I'm not going to sit here and load World War III puts either. I just don't think like the market's a great forward-looking mechanism, right? So I think if there was more angst or worries that was on the table, then I think we'd be down a heck of a lot more than we are. So that's kind of like the overall market. And the other thing, you look, the US dollar's higher, the yields are lower. So all these are just, it's like tough for me to kind of rationalize that there's the start of a huge pullback coming. Maybe I'm wrong. All right, so that's the overall market. So now individual names and kicking myself all in the pre-market, watching Reddit gap when the market opened. So I finally went and got some Reddit calls, and 135s looked expensive on a risk reward basis when I was talking about on the rent yesterday afternoon when Reddit was down in the 120s, and turned out those were not those were not expensive on risk reward basis. Those were cheap, right? Because they went up thousands of percent right after the open run. So I was looking for some strikes. I'm like, do I go next week? And then it was really starting to take off. I was looking at 145s. Those look expensive. I got the 150s. And then in a flash, they're 75 cents, then they're a dollar 50. So uh, just in a matter of 10 minutes, I'm able to close some out to cover costs for over 100%. And then within the 30 minutes, I'm able to close some more out for 200%. And then I just held the rest, have a couple more. It was coming down, and I'm like, do I close the rest out? But I'm like, I think this can still run. There's still plenty of time in a week. It's very volatile. My calls were actually still in the green just a little while ago, but I'll just continue to hold those. I don't know if I'll add any more, but I was talking about it yesterday afternoon too on a rant. It's like Reddit can go 140, 145, 150, 160 in a very short period of time. So that's kind of the thought process there. Whoops, got cut off there. So that's the thought process there on Reddit. So great one there. And then Dell, I added those spec calls yesterday. More of a pincher play, but also its earnings. I thought phenomenal earnings. I thought it should have been trading north of 130 after the earnings. It did everything but that and traded all the way back into the low 100s. I think here's a great opportunity for it to start to outperform. You look at some of the other names in the semi space. So I was able to lock some of those 118s in for 100%, well, close to 100% yesterday. And then I took some more out for 400% earlier in the morning. And I'll just continue to hold those. And then I went and added some July strikes. I think it trades 125 plus in the coming weeks. And you start looking at this pincher, where it's been, its fundamentals, its position, its back orders, like all those different elements. It was there before, but when the stock was in the 161, 170 range back in the spring of last year. So I think there's an opportunity for it to outperform. So those look interesting on a risk reward basis. The 130s almost came up to a double. I almost was able to lock some in to cover cost. And of course, it pulls back from 117 and change all the way down to 115. But Dell has had a history of giving back all the gains from the open. So the fact that it's holding here, I think if it closes 115, 160, I think that bodes well for tomorrow. And then at some point, I look to close the last on 118 is just hold the July strikes. That's Dell. And then MDB, and I tried to do the MDB lottos on Friday, that huge candle, huge volume at the open, and then it kind of just, uh, it was like someone was either adding a stake or what have you, and then some sellers just took control, just melted it lower for the rest of the day, and then you just watch, it's still melting. I thought the gap filled, so 199.75 was the earnings high, and came all the way down to 224 this morning. I was hoping it would fill it, it didn't, but then it bounced, right? So didn't want to be in a spot where I missed the opportunity. And typically, MDB, the calls are expensive and they look inexpensive on a risk reward basis. So I was looking at the 215s, then the 217.50s. But I'm like, I don't want to spend too much because if it goes, the calls are going to be a couple 100% regardless of what strike I get. I'd rather spend less and make more. So went and got the 220s. I'll continue to hold those. Also, relative strength. Even when the market's kind of melting lower, it seems like MDB's finding a bid. Snow's in the green too. So really like this as a lotto. I put that in the trade room. If I just I'm looking if there's headlines tonight or the Fed has some missteps tomorrow. I mean it could trade back under $200, but I'm just looking for some decent risk reward ones that I think could do well. If the no crazy headlines tonight and tomorrow, and the Fed can kind of ease concerns, I think it trades into the 215 plus tomorrow, off day, and then Friday into 220. So that's kind of thought process there. Still eyeing some more Roku strikes. I was looking great at the open, gapped all the way up to 84, and then Roku did what it typically does, gave back all those gains. Still looking at those July 100s, July 18th hundreds, similar to the Dell strikes, July 18th. Then the other names, Joby, hanging in there at $9 pretty much the entire morning, then hit noon hour, and then boom, under $9. Still looking for some later data strikes on that and serve. And then some of these other names, Lemonade. It's such a frustrating name because you could be trading it, holding calls, thinking it's finally ready to break and squeeze, and then it just pulls for no other reason. It's down 8%, 7% today. Still watching that one because I think if it finds some footing, I'll look to get some more spec calls. 'Cause I might look for some longer dated strikes to play for that finally that break over $50. Wayfair, speaking of $50, Wayfair tapped the 50 handle and then boom, it's back to nearly flat here. Another name I'll continue to watch. And I'm trying to think of some of the other names here. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to talk too much about Solar Edge. It's, I'll just hold my strikes. Disappointing. I don't see how the credits can hit the name so much, right? I mean, uh, maybe I'm wrong. I remember Whirlpool was another name that used to just get destroyed when they got rid of credits. Sometimes I just can't wrap my head around it. So that's that. I'm trying to think of some of the other names I've been looking at. Oh, Remilty, right? RELY is the ticker. It's one of my top 5 stocks for 2025. That was actually up substantially to start the year. It's come back down. Some of it's the tax bill, right? So remittance, right? That's what they do. It's a company that takes advantage of folks who work and send money abroad and vice versa, and then they get a cut of it, similar to like a Western Union. And supposedly with the new tax bill yesterday, the tax rate on the remittance was supposed to be better than expected, and stock was soaring in the pre-market and right at the open. Not the most liquid name, so maybe a name I'll revisit to add some strikes on, but certainly interesting. And I think that's it, folks. Let's have a great day. Hopefully, no crazy headlines. Calmer heads prevail. Everything can get worked out. Israel ends what's going on to completion, right? With minimal loss of life, and the world is a safer place in the coming weeks. That would be the ideal scenario. Let's have a great day, folks. Rock and roll.